Hello and welcome into episode 54 of the Stomp the Bus Show. I'm your host, Mark Harris, and sadly, we are coming to you after ASU's first loss of the 2023 season, a 27-15 defeat to the Oklahoma State Cowboys. How you doing, Colton? And what do you see from that game?
I'm doing great, Mark. Thank you for asking. I love your mustache. Yours is much more pronounced than mine. This is the best that I can do. It just kind of
You
looks
got to
like
go to
some.
beard first. You got to go to the beard first, and then just shave everything off, but the mustache
Okay, I've never been one who could grow any sort of significant facial hair. I usually just grow
or
a little bit of
goatee.
fuzz
You could do
on my
goatee
face.
first.
Yeah, but this never connects. So if I'm going goatee, I'm just going with like this soul patch and then this here. Um,
Just take some
so
supplements from the gym. That'll help out.
yeah, I can add it to my supplement regime. All
Go to a
the
gas station, get one of those pills.
all the creatine, all the amino acids, all the weightlifting stuff that I'm taking, I
Oh
can just
yeah.
add it into that cycle. So,
You're
yeah,
definitely not stalling to
no, truthfully, looking at this game, I don't know. It doesn't feel, and maybe it's because of like the bowl game stuff. Maybe it's because of everything surrounding this team and the fact that we've both been very realistic about what this season is in our eyes. I
right.
I kind of I view this season as like we're kind of doing recon a little bit. We're kind of going to see what the future looks like for this team. They've got a true freshman quarterback. Hopefully, we'll continue to have that true freshman quarterback for a couple of years, but who knows? Given the state of college football. Brand new coach, first year coach, youngest coach in FBS, all of that stuff. So it doesn't seem to me, it's not like the sky is falling. It's not like we came in with these lofty expectations. Very winnable game, and there's a lot of elements of this game that drove me crazy that
Right.
reflect on Dillingham, I think. This game was a pretty significant growing pain for him, I think. I think that's the best way to describe it based on what I saw was this is the first time I think we're going to discuss, and I mean it's game two, so it's not like we've had a long list of opportunities to get into all of this. But I think this discussion that we're about to have will be pretty critical of the job that Dillingham did on Saturday, and I think rightfully so. Is that kind of how you feel as well?
I don't I kind of disagree with you on that. So I guess we'll get
Okay.
into it then.
Okay, good. I want to hear
What
what
were
you think
your
then.
I mean, I don't think he coached a perfect game by any means, but
No,
what
and
were your thoughts on it?
I'm looking through the box score just to see how many times he did go for it on fourth down with a direct snap to Cam Scattaboo. I'm trying to I'm trying to
Yeah,
figure that out. That part drove me insane, especially in a game where um you're up 7-0, and as the game goes along, you understand you're in a bit of a dogfight, right? It's not like Oklahoma State's defense was ripping off chunk play after chunk play, you know what I'm saying? Um
you mean their offense?
or yeah, offense,
Yeah,
that's what I meant. But just looking at this, it's they did go with three quarterbacks again.
yeah,
So we saw that.
and you could
But
tell too.
yeah, their longest play was a 20-yard pass play, and it was the first passing attempt of the game, right?
Right.
So it's not like this offense was completely on fire, and setting them back deep in their own territory, I think might have been this game kind of devolved into a bit of a chess match where if you're playing the position game and you're doing a little bit of that, I think you put yourself in a better position ultimately. Not that Dillingham's offense played much better. Um, I mean, Rashada was kind of running for his life in this game, and we'll get into that in just a second. But you look at the scoring possession here and or progression rather, and after Elijah Badger's 65-yard touchdown with 10 minutes in the second quarter, ASU didn't score any more points. That
Yeah,
was it. So,
yeah,
and I mean, if Dillingham's thing was supposed to be offensive prowess and everything like that, regardless of the situation, regardless of the freshman quarterback, regardless of the circumstances, not scoring any points after 10 minutes in the second quarter is worrisome to me. In a game that you're up 15-7, it looked like they were going to be able to handle this game at the very least and do what they needed to do to win based on what we had seen to that point. And then after that, the wheels kind of fell off. So that was what was concerning to me. But what did you think?
So I'm looking through the opportunities when they didn't get the first down on fourth down, right?
Yeah.
So
I know they went 1 for 5. They went for it 5 times. I think the last time was like the game was kind of over, so it was inconsequential a little
I'm not
bit.
going to count. Yeah.
Yeah,
the
that's
last
fine.
time. So I see the first time. This is with ASU up 15-10, pretty close before the half. It doesn't result in anything because OSU punted after. I mean, 4th and 5 at the Oklahoma State 48. Rashada gets sacked. I'm okay with that one. I mean, I get upset when Pete Carroll doesn't go for it at that time. And I mean, obviously every game is different, but I'm okay with that one. Right before the half, 4th and 1 on Oklahoma State's 40. It's the Scatabo direct snap, but they got all the way to their 40-yard line. So with that one, it's like that's too far for a field goal. You're not going to punt. I mean, if you don't like the play call, I can understand that. But
I think it was the play call for me.
yeah,
I think that's what drove me crazy. And he ran, if I'm not mistaken, he ran that play twice, right?
Oh no, they ran it probably like 4 times.
That's what I'm saying. I mean on fourth down though, they ran that direct snap twice, right? Because I want to say the one in the fourth quarter that kind of put the game out of reach.
I think they did run it twice, but the time that they didn't get it was, I think they got it one time running that play, and then the second time they did it on 4th and 1, they didn't get it.
Okay, because they were 1 for 5 on fourth down conversions in the game. So the one that they did pick up was in the fourth quarter. Yeah, that must have been the one that they actually got. But yeah, I think for me it was more the play call. I hate that direct snap stuff, especially when your offensive line isn't necessarily your strength. I think that direct snap, like wildcat formation, is the least. It makes the defense guess the least.
That's true. I'll give you that. But the flip side is it doesn't have to hold up as long when there's like the exchange from the quarterback to the running back. So
100%. If you're running the ball, I get it, and it's 4th and 1, you kind of have to.
Yeah.
I just don't think. I think in that game, in that situation, right, 4th and 1, you want to play to your strengths a little bit, and I get it. This team doesn't have a whole lot.
The offensive line was just so bad. Like that's thing.
That's exactly my point. Is how do you expect that offensive line to hold up on a 4th and 1 when their job is to move that pile so that there's any room for Scatabo to pick that up? Because if Scatabo is getting a direct snap, the defensive line doesn't have to guess at all. They know exactly what's coming. It's Scatabo trying to get that 1 yard, and if you can't get any push with your offensive line, and it hasn't happened all night, why do you expect it to happen in that situation? I mean, that was my point.
My counter to that would be that play had been working the previous times he had called it. So
okay,
that would be, but I mean, to me, like the only 4th down I had an issue with that like was the second to last one. This was Oklahoma State had just made it midway. But we're about midway through the fourth quarter. They hit a field goal. They're up by 5 points. And it was 3 and out, and then they didn't get it was an incomplete pass from Rashada, and that was on ASU's own 33, and then Oklahoma State scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
But that's the only one I didn't like, but I also understood the thought process behind it, because if you punt that away, there's a good chance you're not getting it back anyway. So, yeah. And if you punt it away, you would have to go all the way down and score a touchdown too, and not a field goal. So there's really only one 4th down that they didn't get that I was like really upset with, because like I get here's where I do agree with you on the Cam Scatabo direct snap thing is the time that we mentioned right after halftime. That was he definitely called that play one too many times. It felt like that I agree with.
And that's where I think, you see some of those growing pains a little bit, and maybe recognizing like, okay, this has been working, but at what point is it like that one time too many? And I guess it's hard to project that. I guess it's hard to be on top of when that's going to be. But I mean, beyond just the fourth down stuff, going, what is that? 2.5 quarters without scoring any points. Like that's not great.
No, I look, just being at the game, like I think like we can get into the individual 4th and 1s or the 4th down decisions, but I think the reason they didn't score in the second half was just the offensive line was just really bad, and like obviously it's injured, and so I'm not trying to but look, it just wasn't that good, and I mean Rashada had very little room to operate. You have 2 3 and outs, or no, I guess basically 3 and outs. He threw a pick. Honestly, that pick I wasn't that upset with. Like, you get 1 pick in 2 games from a freshman, against a Big 12 defense. Like, it whatever. And maybe it's softened by the fact that Oklahoma State missed the field goal afterward. But I don't know. I think against Fresno State, I'm not really worried about the offense being so anemic. Just because I don't think Fresno State defense is as good as Oklahoma State. But the offense, like, there has to be a way, like, the game plan has to reflect that the offensive line is just not good right now.
Right.
And so that's the thing to watch heading into next week from the offensive side. And then, so in the first half, look, they controlled not like super controlled the game, but they were up by 15-10 at half. Like, they were moving the ball fairly effectively. Like, it looked at halftime, I was like, okay, like, we have a good chance. I remember telling someone, if ASU scores 2 more touchdowns in this game, they'll win. Obviously that didn't happen, but
yeah,
I do want to get to one. We didn't mention this play that happened, and this is let's see. This is in the 4th quarter. This is early in the 4th quarter. ASU had just forced a 3 and out from Oklahoma State, which, man, ASU's defense played really well in this game. And I know that the 3 quarterbacks obviously helped that, but I mean, at halftime, ASU held Oklahoma State to 0 yards rushing. Like, that's a Power 5 opponent, and like, I get it that the quarterback situation wasn't great. Anyway. Also, the punter did not have a great game either. From Josh Carlson, not his best game. But anyway, the point I want to get back to is it's 3rd and 4 at ASU's 33-yard line. Rashada runs for 4 yards. Brooks run for 2 yards, and it's 3rd and 4. And I think you know what play I'm talking about. Guillory is running a post, and Rashada hits him like right on the money, 3rd down, and there was just watching the play from the stadium, there was so much room ahead of Guillory on that play. And I honestly think if Guillory makes that catch and look, he could have ran for a touchdown, or he could have ran, very deep into Oklahoma State territory.
That was on 3rd and 4 in the 4th quarter, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to say like, oh, this one play lost the game, because that's not true. But at the same time, like, that was a huge, crucial play. And
right. And I mean, sometimes that's fair to say. Sometimes one play changes the entire landscape of a game, and you don't know what happens from there, right? Then you don't have I think that's when the other 4th down play was on that drive, right?
It was the drive after.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go and do that. You're approaching that 4th down a little differently. Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say that one play could have had a pretty substantial impact the other way had it gone differently, had Guillory held on to the ball. So
right. And I mean, the other thing that just seeing it from the stands is like they clearly like had the exact right play call for that moment too, which look is not something that can be said, a lot out of last game. But on that play, like the way, whatever the safety was set up, like it opened, for Guillory to run a in breaking route. There was just a ton of space ahead of him. And so like that's a play that hurts. And maybe ASU loses that. Maybe they end up losing like 22-23 and Oklahoma State makes a field goal like at the end. Like that, like obviously that would hurt, but we'd be talking about a different game.
Right. And I
So
don't know, man. Oklahoma State, it took that one touchdown to really put ASU away in this game. As when on a short field, no less, when ASU doesn't pick up
yeah,
that fourth down, and Oklahoma State's able to score and just put the game away. It's not like Oklahoma State. You've already said the defense played an insane game in this one. Like they kept ASU in it for way longer than they should have been in it, right? Like this game, if it would have been won, it probably would have come down to the defense. I don't put that last touchdown on them, honestly.
no.
So
They played a
yeah,
great game.
give up 2 touchdowns, you give up 20 points, right? I think if that ball is caught by Guillory, you're looking at what would that have been? 22. They probably go for 2 in that scenario. Who knows what happens? But you're right. ASU has a lead more than likely deep in the fourth
Yeah,
quarter, and we're talking about something completely different.
they would either be and maybe he gets caught and they don't score a touchdown on the end of the drive, but he had a lot of space ahead of him, and Guillory's a good athlete, so like I think he could have made it. But where was I going with this? The other thing is, oh yeah, no, you mentioned they could have gone for 2. Either they'd be up 21 or 23-20. So just a tough play. But you made a really good point, like early in this show when you mentioned like this is a much easier loss to kind of handle when you know the full context of like what's going on with the program, and so it's a little like that's a good point on that front.
Yeah, I mean, it's not doom and gloom for me, really. It's looking at it like, okay, I think Dillingham's a very smart guy. He obviously has to be in the position that he's in. I think they're going to make adjustments. I think offensively, we're going to see a completely different team in terms of. I don't think we'll see an offense that goes 2.5 quarters without scoring again, right? We'll see some positive developments in that regard. But yeah, I mean, I will say that based on this last game and based on the way Fresno State looks and based on the way the rest of the Pac-12 looks, this season might be a little more difficult in terms of wins and losses than I initially envisioned, right?
Well, for me,
I,
it's the rest of the Pac-12. Like,
I mean, obviously, Fresno
oh,
State's one game out of those 8, right? But like, I'm looking at it as okay, even the Fresno State game looks significantly more difficult, let alone all of the Pac-12 games look significantly
right.
more difficult than they did when we did our show 3 weeks ago. I mean, I think this season is going to be much tougher than we initially thought. I don't know if I don't even know if 4 wins is in the realm of possibility here.
I mean, I would put it in the realm of possibility.
I guess
It
they
would
already
be a
have
lot.
1, but 3
What?
more. I said I guess they already have 1, but
Yeah, my thing is like you never know how a college football season's gonna unfold too.
yeah.
Like, I mean, like, look, if Guillory catches that pass, like we might have won this game, and we could be thinking. Although I feel like even if we had beaten Oklahoma State, I don't think people would be like, "Oh, this team's awesome now," but it just would have been like,
No.
"That's a good win."
Yeah, it's like okay, they got that win, but I'm even like I'm pulling up the schedule right now because I don't know off the top of my head. But I mean, Oklahoma State's probably one of the worst teams they'll play on this
Dude,
schedule,
it might
right?
be they might be the second worst team they play all year, other than Southern Utah. There's a chance.
That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
every other team on this schedule is so much more improved, and I'm trying to pull it up. They look so much better than we gave any of them credit for. I think spare for a few obvious, like USC or whatever. Like, I mean, the Colorado right now is like unbelievable what they're doing. So when they come to ASU, I mean, the Heat can only take you so far. I don't think that's going to be.
No, I think the only thing that, and this could happen, I think the only thing that, well, I guess there's two things with Colorado when they play ASU is one, like I still don't think Colorado's defense is great. Like, because a lot of those turnovers in Nebraska were self-inflicted wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Colorado obviously still played a great game. I'm not, but, and then the other thing is like, if they do suffer some injuries in important spots, in the next month before we play them, we don't, their depth could be very tested. But the thing is, like, with Emmett Boley going out for the year, like our depth's getting tested too, and we have all sorts of injuries on the offensive line, so it works both ways. But no, like your point about the Pac-12, like Washington State looks much better than I thought they would look. Even Cal losing to Auburn, I still think they're a good team. Like they should be the favored team when ASU plays Cal at the end of the month. I'll say this: Arizona looks kind of exactly what I thought they would look like. So that's a positive, I guess. Utah is going to be tough. Oregon's going to be tough. Washington's going to be tough. USC is going to be tough. UCLA looks a little tougher than I thought they would look. So it's like, yeah, you're right. Like there's just it's so weird because I think if you put this exact ASU team in like the Pac-12 of like 2 years ago or like Pac-12 of 4 years ago, I'm not saying they would go like 8-4 or anything, but I think they could like, I don't know, go like 5-7, 6-6. And now this year it's like, okay, let's try to be like a plucky 4-8 team, And I think they can do that. But
currently, only 3 of the teams that they have left on their schedule, they have 10 games left. Only 3 of these teams aren't ranked currently, right, like as it stands today. This has to be one of the more difficult schedules, like in college football.
Oh, absolutely.
Let alone like
absolutely.
Just in the Pac-12. And then I mean, obviously the Arizona game's a rivalry game, and who knows what happens there. But like after Cal, you have
and you
1,
get
2,
Cal on the
3,
road
4,
too.
5,
So
6 straight games against teams that are currently ranked, and 7 of those 8, if you count USC.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. One, I don't think they'll be favored in any of these games remaining. I don't think we'll see ASU as a favorite until next season, maybe against whoever they open up against. I mean, this is wild how this schedule has shaken out and how the rest of the Pac-12 has played. They're ASU and the rest of the Pac are moving in completely different directions.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I mean, the only possible way, like, because you say there's eight teams currently ranked. I mean, they won't all be ranked when we play them just because.
No, I know, but like looking at the schedule right now, I mean, that just because Washington State might fall out of the top 25 by the time we get there at the end of October, I mean, that won't mean that they're still not a significantly better team than ASU is right now, right?
Yeah, that's the only possible game where like we could be favored. Is if like ASU, just improves a little bit over the month of October and Wazoo doesn't. They're coming to Tempe, but like again, that's saying a lot. So like, yeah, it's tough. I mean, honestly, like, but like I have like a year zero mindset for this team, and I mean maybe that's okay. Like obviously it sucks to lose. I'm not trying to, explain away losing, but when you look at the Big 12, like if ASU can just go into the Big 12 with some good vibes and, you're getting some younger guys playing time this year, it looks like you're going to be playing a much easier schedule next year than you will this year. And maybe a good way to think of it is you're playing like a typical Pac-12 schedule from the past few years, but not this year's Pac-12 schedule when you enter into the Big 12.
Yeah, definitely. I love That's such a great way to put it too. The year zero schedule. I think year zero mentality. Like I think we both kind of have that where it's
Yeah.
this is seeing what we have. This is getting these guys some experience. There's no bowl game, so it's not
Yeah.
like you're playing for anything other than learning a little bit and for pride. Maybe take some of these teams down while you're kind of clearing the slate, so to speak, this
Right.
season with when serving this punishment. So, you know, it is what it is. It's not going to be in terms of like wins and losses a very fun season in that regard. But I think if you change your perspective a little bit, if you're an ASU fan and you're frustrated and you're, whatever, if you change your perspective a little bit and try to identify like the progression, I think that approach to this season could be a lot more fun, regardless of wins or losses. If you're looking at, Rashada is running for his life in one game, and then Dillingham is able to figure out like, hey, if we work on just quick release, get the ball out of his hands as quickly as we can, so he's not running for his life or he's not sacked or
Right.
whatever it is, kind of take like just those little tweaks throughout the season, I think will be fun to watch, and that's kind of what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, totally. And ASU still has some really good skill players too. So
A
like
hundred, yeah,
that
absolutely.
that makes it a little just more fun, from a football fan standpoint, just having good skill players. Like Elijah Badger's a fun player to watch. Guillory, for the mistake that he made on Saturday, he's a good player. Like
Hmm.
he was that open. So like that shows you like I would rather a guy, be able to get open consistently and have a drop here and there than the other way around,
Then never get separation, right?
Yeah. And so that's more transferable week to week, which is great. And like Scatabo, like, he's good. Like that was a
Yeah.
good touchdown run on that first, touchdown they had. So you mentioned like what they're like playing for this week. I feel like this Fresno game, because this is most likely the easiest game left on our schedule. Um, I feel like this determines whether you're gonna like maybe it only determines like what your record will be in the end, which obvious, but like I feel like it determines like what kind of below average team you're going to be. If that sounds like I don't want to go into the USC game 1-2, I just
No.
don't. And I think we will, but I don't want to. And going in 2-1, it's not going to change the result of the game, but it's like, okay, like at least you have like the one game up. So when you do lose, like you get to 2-2 instead of 1-3. And from again with no bowl game this year, I think just hovering around 500 for as long as you can will actually be valuable because you can sell like, hey, like we can, you know, you can only sell, oh, we can play the spoiler so much, in my opinion. So
Yeah, until it gets old. No, I get it.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, just looking at this Fresno State game, I think this will be it's going to be a different sort of feel in terms of like a,
absolutely.
a check for where this offense might actually be in a game where they have to like match another offense, right? I think that Oklahoma State game was more of a slugfest, like just play within whatever plan that you've come up with, right?
Yeah.
Try to move the offense. It's not where whatever it was. It was kind of a down and dirty like slugfest a little bit. That's kind of how I saw that game. But I think this Fresno State game has the potential to be more of a track meet a little bit in terms of points scored and watching this offense. Yeah, I mean, we've got the first game. We know what happened there. The second game, offense was bogged down by poor O-line play. You had the drop. You had everything else, right? I think in this game, this gives us an actual opportunity to see this offense um, score some points and look fun. Because I think you and I have both been talking about it quite a bit. Like I know we mentioned in the leading up to the season, like this team may not win a lot of games, but at least they'll score points and they'll be fun to watch offensively. We haven't really gotten that yet, you know?
Right.
So I think this game, just looking at Fresno State's numbers and the yardage they allow, 364 yards per game, it has the potential, I mean, we saw what happened with Purdue, right? That game was kind of a shootout. Their Eastern
Yeah.
Washington game was a shootout too. So they have the players to make this a shootout. I mean, Eastern Washington went to double overtime. Purdue 39-35. They're not holding anybody. They're not, suppressing
No.
anybody's offense or anything like that. So if I think if we're talking next week and ASU wasn't able to score points against Fresno State, then there are some questions with this
Yeah.
offense and what they're doing, how they're progressing. But I think there's enough off of last game that they could improve on to hopefully come into this game and build on what they did poorly against Oklahoma State, right? They have an opportunity to do so against an opponent that will allow them to do so. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to here. I want to see that track meet. I want to see that over darling that we both thought ASU might be coming into this season.
Right. Well, and if you get on track against Fresno State, I don't know how well it translates to USC. Like USC's defense is still, some people are saying it's a little better now. It's kind of a mystery to me. Like, I don't know. But
Yeah.
in that game, like, look, ASU is going to lose that game. They'll probably lose that game ultimately by like 21 points at best. But I want there to be like a point in like the third quarter where like, oh, ASU's only down by 7 points and, with 10 minutes left to go in the third quarter. And like the offense is kind of keeping up. And then USC would pull away and it's like, okay, like they teased
kind of like
us
what
a little
happened
bit.
last year, right?
Yeah,
That's
kind
kind
of
of
a
what
little
we
bit.
got
Yeah.
last year a little bit. Yeah.
Something like that where I just don't want it to be like some awful halftime score. And it's just, that would just be very bad for everyone. I mean, it's bad already. I'm talking about the ways I would prefer to lose a game. So,
Yeah. Oh, I
uh,
mean, it's not great.
yeah,
Regardless of
no,
how
it's not.
we slice it, regardless of how we kind of perceive the whole thing, it's not the most fun you could possibly have watching a football team.
It is not. No,
So
no. Uh, I do. If the defense can continue to be competent all year, then ASU might like just, I don't know, luck into a win. Like we saw I mean, it's the NFL, so obviously much different comparison, but we saw the Cardinals on Sunday, who are, look, I don't think ASU is a good team at all, but I think the Cardinals are probably worse relative to their league than ASU is.
yeah,
Um,
I would say that's fair.
Probably,
I
whole
It might
season
not
ahead.
be as far as you think immediately, but I would still say ASU might be a little bit better relative to their league than the Cardinals.
Or relative to the Power Five, I would say.
Okay.
Because the Pac-12 is so good this year. So I guess that's what I meant. But my point with
Yeah.
this is like the Cardinals, could have won on Sunday, and part of the reason why is because they got a defensive touchdown, and so it's not like this team came close to any defensive touchdowns on Saturday. But I mean, BJ Green looked great, 2 sacks. He was all over the place, and like you said, like they didn't give up any big plays.
No.
They gave up the 120-yard pass. Like, okay, like that's it. I mean, that like the whole defensive performance was really encouraging to me. Like, for one, just how long ASU was actually in the game. That's another thing. Like, when you see a 27-15 score, that does not accurately, show how the game went. Um,
Right.
like
No, I
this
completely agree. It's like that defense is the reason it came down to the wire.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that last touchdown pass for Rangel, that was with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Say just whatever, bad play call, incomplete. OSU has to kick a field goal, and then it's still a one-score game. So that might have been part of the reason why Dillingham went for it on his own 33, because he was like, well, if I punt it away, I may not get it back because it'll take them a while to get down the field. And if I don't get it here, there's a chance our defense just holds them to a field goal, and we still have a chance. But who knows? Yeah. You mentioned, Fresno State, they need to score. I don't know. ASU needs to probably, like, for us to not be complaining about the offense next time we record, what's this points total ASU's offense needs to get to? Win or
I think
lose. Let's just take the
yeah,
result out of it for now.
I think win or lose, I need to see 24 would be very fringe for me. 24 would still be like, I don't know, the defense isn't great for
Yeah.
Fresno State. 24 still feels low, but I think you could talk me into 24 if things went differently and maybe there was like a red zone turnover or something like that. Like, okay,
Right.
they shot themselves in the foot, but they easily could have scored 31. I want to see between 28 and 31 points scored in this game. If they lose, I want them to lose like 38-35 to 31-28, something like that. Right? Like that's
Yeah.
kind of what I want a shootout in this game. I want this offense to put up points. I want to see that back and forth that, I was excited to see because that's the most enjoyable part about having a team that isn't going to contend for anything is you want to have a team that actually scores points. That's what's fun to watch. Offense is fun to watch. I want to see them score. I do think Fresno State's going to end up winning this game. It's only a 3-point spread right now. I think they might cover a little more than that. Also, who knows though? Maybe,
Yeah.
coming to Tempe is going to throw them off a little bit. It's not like there's zero chance ASU wins this
Oh, I
game.
mean, look, Fresno State's defense has been not good in both of their wins. Like,
Right.
I mean, they look like we complained about barely beating Southern Utah. I'm sure they are complaining about going to double overtime with Eastern Washington, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Giving up 35 and I mean 31 in double overtime, that's a little deceiving. But again, it's Eastern Washington.
Yeah.
You don't anticipate to give up that many points. They're a pretty solid offensive program though.
Well,
Um,
I haven't looked at their box score, but like either way, like it doesn't matter. Like whatever it was, you went to overtime with them already. So maybe your defense did a little bit better than the 31 points in double overtime would suggest. But ultimately, like
well, they
then
had to come back even to get to
Fresno.
um, let me see, maybe I was looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, Eastern Washington took a lead in the fourth quarter. Fresno State had to tie it.
Yeah, there you
Um,
go. And
yeah.
so no, I don't want to. I don't want to talk myself into because I don't want to talk
Yeah.
myself into like, oh, ASU is going to win this game. Like, although I would think ASU would win, I think the thing that hurts them really badly is the Emmett Boley injury and some of the offensive lineman injuries.
Yeah.
Even though Fresno State's defensive line probably isn't as good as Oklahoma State's, it's still like it's a freshman quarterback in his third game starting. Like it's it's still tough. Like there's just there's just a
Yeah.
lot of guys injured on this offensive line, and it's just
Yeah,
tough.
I can tell you I won't be picking ASU to win this game, but I will be picking a ton of points. I think we might finally see, I don't want to say an offensive explosion. I don't want to be hyperbolic or anything like that. But a little bit more than we've seen from the last two games. And maybe like a pretty decent amount more than we've seen the last two games. Um, I want to see that consistency a little bit. You saw a little bit of offense against Southern Utah in the very beginning before that game got weird. You saw a little bit of offense in the beginning against Oklahoma State, right? You had the Elijah Badger touchdown catch. You had the Scattaboo touchdown run.
Yeah,
Um, so
both great
maybe,
play calls, by the way.
yeah, yeah.
Is
Like
that he
there's
was
there's
Badger was open?
flashes. There's flashes. There's
Yes.
flashes that we've seen. So turning those flashes into a more consistent beam of light, so to speak, would be
Yeah.
would be ideal. I want to see that against a defense that will allow you to do that. Also, this total is extremely low. I don't know what anybody has it at in terms of like where you can actually play it, but
What's
on
the number?
ESPN, I'm seeing it listed at 50.5, um, which feels very, very low given the state of these two teams.
I feel like if
Maybe
that
that's
game goes under, that's either a really great thing for ASU or it's a really bad thing for ASU. Like I feel like if it goes under, it's
Yeah.
because either ASU's defense just basically played a similar game that they did last week, or ASU's offense is even worse than it was last week.
Yeah, I think that figure is, I mean, it kind of based on what Fresno State has done defensively the last 2 weeks. I think that figure being as low as it is kind of a little tip of the cap to ASU's defense a little bit, right? Like,
It
how is
could
it
be.
not? Or maybe even a little like, yeah. And again, these are all like simulations, and how these are determined
Yeah.
is way above my pay grade. But I would have to think
You're not setting
it's
the lines in Vegas, Colton. I didn't
no,
know.
I retired a few years back. I would think this has something to do with ASU's defense having played solid and
Yeah.
ASU's offense having looked a little shaky the last 2 weeks. But again, I do think we're going to see strides from ASU's offense in this game, and if that's the case, I think that total is way too low.
Yeah, that does look a little suspicious. And so, I saw some, videos of like press conferences this week from practice. Uh, they were talking to Dilling, or they were talking to one of the players, or maybe it was Dillingham, I don't know. But like you had players like messing around with like pretending like to ask him a question or something. And so like to me, that speaks to the vibe still being pretty high around the team. And I think that's very important to know because like obviously the vibes around the fan base are just very low. Not
Yeah.
really, not like only really like 10-15% because of this team, really just mostly just because of uh everything that's preceded it and Michael Crow going out of his way, this like 10 months ago to say that Deion Sanders wasn't ready for coaching. Which
Yeah,
oh
because
Mikey.
Michael Crow is the expert on all things athletics. He
Yeah,
really seems to have his
exactly.
finger on the pulse.
We've always said that. But and another thing is, I think a lot of times when you have the group of five team come in, there's maybe not as much motivation
Yeah.
naturally. There can be no like there's no excuse, and I don't see this. I haven't seen this as an issue with the team so far. Like I'm not trying to accuse anyone of this, but like there's no excuse not to have all the motivation in the world against Fresno
Yeah,
State.
this should be the most motivated, the most hungry that they've been. And it's a
Yeah,
young season. It's week 3. I
right.
get it. But this should be the most hungry and motivated that they've been, this group as a collective under
Yep.
Dillingham so far.
Because one, you just lost. Two, you are underdogs at home to a group of five team. Now, granted, it's a pretty good group. It's like one of the better group of five programs. So I'm not like Fresno State's a good program. It's not that, but you are an underdog at home to them. And also
And I mean, you were just shut out for 2.5 quarters
that too,
at
exactly.
home.
Yeah. The other thing is Fresno State actually has the second longest winning streak of all teams in the country entering this week. The only team ahead of them is Georgia. They've won 11 straight games. And so if you're, I think I saw a player mention this too, like, oh, we got to end that winning streak. We got to, that's another added carrot. And I like, a part of me likes that they're playing like a above average-ish group of five team instead of UNLV or something. Because like if you're playing UNLV or like Nevada, like either you win comfortably and then that's great, or ASU either barely wins or loses and then we have all the same questions. If ASU like sure, like if ASU wins an ugly defensive game, don't get me wrong, I'm still going to be disappointed in the offense, but it's like okay, you held Fresno State's offense to 15 points or whatever. So they're a good enough team where there's no excuses about motivation or anything like that. So
100%. I think this is going to be a good temperature check for like where this team's at mentally. You talked about it, like
yeah.
how do they respond, all of those things, right? I think that's a great point. There was something I was going to say and I completely blanked on it, so we can probably move on. But
Well,
yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I think this is the first, and obviously Oklahoma State was, I don't know how to word it. It's the first game for me where I'm like, I think we're gonna get a good solid feel for what this team is. I think Oklahoma State was like their first, I don't want to say, I think real game is the worst way to say it. I think there was a lot of weird stuff in that game. That game had to, and I'm sure they were just like, you know what, 1-0, throw it away. But this is the first game where it's like they've got to respond. They've got to put some of the doubt to rest, all of that stuff. And I remember what I was going to say. In a season where there doesn't seem to be like any clear-cut goal to play for, I think it's so important to find the meaning in each game that you're playing. And that winning streak thing that you're talking about, that's one of those things. That's an example of something that you can find motivation in a game that doesn't really play for any sort of grand scheme, grand goal, right? When you're in a situation that it's like you can't play for anything bigger in terms of like bowl game, conference champ, whatever it is, finding those small little milestones along the way can make you it helps you find the meaning, and it helps you stay focused on various things across the board. So that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's basically all I got. I do have one more topic to bring up. And it's funny that we haven't really mentioned this player too much this episode. Well, the second player, I guess, but Drew Pine is returning back to practice this week, and there's been some speculation, some fans being like, oh, we should play him over Rashada. I think I am on record, like, stick with Rashada. Like, just stick with him. He was not, like, obviously didn't have a fantastic game, but he wasn't the reason you lost to Oklahoma State. Like,
100%.
Not
and
again. Yeah.
No, what were you going to say? Sorry.
I was just going to reiterate, like, he didn't have a great game. He threw a pick. Like, I'm not trying to, excuse all of that, but he was not the main issue. And again, like, if it's a year zero, if you don't have a bowl, like, why would you just put Rashada in for 2 games and be like, oh, we've seen enough? It's like, no, you haven't. You actually have not. And again, Fresno State defense, this will be this is a not great defense. And so that should provide opportunities for him as well. What?
Yeah, I was just saying this is the litmus test. I've been trying to think of that phrase this entire episode, and it finally came to me. This is the litmus test for the offense to see where they're at against a team that will allow points, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how I feel. But you're 100% right. If Rashada isn't the reason you're losing games, and I don't think he is, I don't feel like he's been the reason, or I guess the one game, if he's not the reason you're losing and it doesn't ever get to that point in this season, I completely agree with you. I think you have to stick with him. You have to let him learn from these mistakes. You have to let him grow on the job. And that's the commitment that you made when you made him the starter out of the gate.
Yes.
If you were nervous about like, oh, if he's losing us games and we have to pull him, what's that going to do not only for his progression, but for his willingness to want to stay in a system where you can leave every single year, depending on what happens. All of these things were probably considered. And if that was something you were worried about, you go with Bourguet until Pine is healthy. Right? That's kind of my thought process. Is
right.
Rashada is almost like there, but kind of unofficially redshirting if this was going to be the case, if he was just going to be your guy until Pine was healthy.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. And I think it's just reactionary fan behavior, honestly.
Yeah. I haven't seen anything from Rashada where I have thought he's not ready for this.
No, a part of me thinks he's exceeded expectations just by like not being a complete disaster in the second half in their last game. And again, he wasn't like great. I'm not trying to, he didn't help them win the game. I get it. But he also, anyway, I made my point on that. But it's just reactionary fan behavior. And Dillingham said in a press conference this week, like, he kind of made it clear it wasn't Rashada's main fault that they lost. I think he had a quote of like, we have 99 problems and quarterback isn't one of them or something like that. Or I don't know. But and that's what you want to hear from a coach with a freshman quarterback who you entrusted to be the starter this whole year. You can't. That would be just that would be such bad leadership, in my opinion, to be like, just after one bad half, not even a bad game, because he had a good first half. Just be like, oh, okay, no, we're actually going to take you out now because, it's the third game of the year against Fresno State. It's like, and you haven't been 100% awesome.
Yeah, and it's not like Drew Pine is some world beater of a quarterback
no.
who's going to put you. I feel like you could almost do less with Drew Pine than you can with Rashada. Like it does not make sense, and I hope I hope this is all just speculation. I hope this is something that's actually being entertained, and I don't think it is.
Yeah, and I have two thoughts when it comes to Rashada. And Rashada and Pine. With Rashada, let's just say you switch Rashada and put him on Oklahoma State for that game, and let's just say you had ASU had Oklahoma State's best quarterback, probably Rangel. I don't know. They all kind of look the same, but just one of those guys, Bowman, Rangel, or Gundy, they're on ASU. How do you think that game goes? Like, it's ASU still loses, and they probably lose by even more. So I do not buy that that he's the issue. And with Pine, people are like, oh, he's more experienced, he's this and that. And it's like, okay, Pine, his only year of starting as a quarterback in college was behind Notre Dame's offensive line with future pros on it. And so we're supposed to be, oh, okay, you haven't played in in a year, you're just getting off a hamstring injury. Here you go, behind ASU's offensive line that's held together by duct tape and baling wire and super glue. Good luck.
I would say glue sticks.
Yeah, there you go. But that's my point. Like, yeah. So
yeah, no, I completely agree. It wouldn't make any sense, and I don't think it's a move that can be even entertained at this point. And from my perspective, when Dillingham made the move to go with Rashada as a true freshman in the season opener, he kind of they're linked in my mind now. Rashada and Dillingham until Rashada leaves. Hopefully, that's after a very productive ASU career and he has an NFL future and he leaves after 3 years, right? Hopefully that's what happens for all parties. I like this era is that's chapter 1 of the Dillingham era. Chapter 1 is the Jaden Rashada era. Like that's kind of how I view it now.
Yeah.
And for better or worse, if Dillingham decides, hey, this kid's not ready, you made the decision to go with him, and he hasn't looked like he's not ready. I think he's going to continue to grow. He's going to continue to improve, and this is going to end up being a great decision. But it's so pivotal in his freshman year to instill that confidence in him, and I think they've done a great job of that. You know, Dillingham talking about the 99 problems and a quarterback isn't one. The classic Jay-Z adage. That he stuck by him and he kind of showed him like, hey, they're linked in my mind, and I'm excited. I think it's cool to have a quarterback and a coach that are going to grow together. We're in very, very similar positions for their respective roles, so that's a cool layer to watch in a season that doesn't have a ton of cool layers.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, let's make some game picks. Colton, I'll let you go first.
All right, like I said, I'm really on a shootout here. I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. I think the offense is going to feel the pressure a little bit, especially after what we talked about for 2.5 quarters against Oklahoma State, being shut out at home after getting off to a relatively hot start with the touchdown and taking the lead and everything like that. I think they're going to come out with something to prove against a defense that I have multiple times said is going to allow them to come out and prove it. I'm saying ASU scores 28 points. I'll say final score is going to be, I'm going to say 38-28. Fresno State wins.
Okay.
Actually, sorry. Give me 31-28.
31-28. Okay. Wow. Well, we basically have a very similar prediction because I have ASU losing 30-28. So
wow. Okay.
I think ASU's offense is going to be better, but you're also going to see the offensive line woes are still going to be an issue. And I think Fresno will be able to get a few more plays than Oklahoma State will, and that will be the reason for the loss. So
that's a good call. I'm anxious to see. I talked about it a little bit, but that adjustment that Dillingham makes, like how do you simplify the game a little bit for Rashada after what happened, and considering what happened against Oklahoma State, and considering the state of the offensive line? Are they going to go with, what is he going to scheme up? Right? Is he going to go with more 3-step drops? Is he going to try to get the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible? We've made a few NFL comparisons in this episode, so I'll give you one more. Watching that Eagles Patriots game on Sunday, it was incredible how a game plan centered around getting the ball out of your quarterback's hands as quickly as possible. It was incredible how efficient that makes a quarterback look and how that neutralizes a pass rush.
right.
You cannot get after a quarterback if the ball is in his hands for 2 to 3 seconds, right? So if they come up with some plan that's just like, as quickly as possible, let's run slants, let's run crossers, let's run bootlegs, let's get Jaden Rashada out of the pocket a little bit, let him use his legs. Whatever they scheme up, that's what I'm most excited to see. And I think Dillingham is up for the task. This is my first big test for Dillingham. I want to see how he responds after that Oklahoma State game. And I think he will respond. So that's kind of the last thing I wanted to say, is just I want to see what he schemes up for Rashada to simplify the offensive approach for him a little bit.
Yeah, I feel that. That all makes sense. All right. Thank you for watching, everyone. Obviously, we hope, ASU wins, but we try to be realistic here. So that's where we're coming from. Please rate and review, like and subscribe. And as always, go Devils.